Sienna Brooks had always found solace in numbers. To her, statistics weren't just figures on a page. They were stories, waiting to be told. They revealed patterns, predicted futures, and most importantly, spoke the truth. At 24, with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, she was a statistician at the National Policy Analysis Bureau, NPAB, a place she believed was dedicated to making the country better, one data point at a time. Her current project was a deep dive into national education budget allocations. The goal: understand how government funds impacted student performance across diverse regions. It was a monumental task, but Sienna loved it. The intricate web of figures, the correlations, the outliers, it all pulsed with a vibrant, logical rhythm. Then, she hit a discordant note. While analyzing the Special Innovation Fund, a pool of money earmarked for cutting-edge educational resources in underserved districts, Sienna noticed an anomaly. The allocated funds in certain regions seemed disproportionately high compared to the reported expenditures and, more glaringly, the actual on-the-ground outcomes. Schools in those areas still reported dilapidated facilities, outdated textbooks, and a severe lack of resources. Sienna meticulously double-checked her calculations. The discrepancy persisted. It was small, at first, a whisper of a doubt in the symphony of data. She flagged it to her supervisor, Mr. Harrison, a man whose smile rarely reached his eyes. "Just a clerical error, Miss Brooks," he'd said, his voice smooth as polished stone. "Or perhaps a regional variation in reporting standards. Adjust for it. Make sure the final report reflects the allocated spending correctly. Adjust for it." The words echoed ominously in Sienna's mind. Adjusting meant making the numbers lie. A prickle of discomfort turned into a cold knot in her stomach. Statistics were supposed to reveal truth, not obscure it. That evening, over lukewarm takeout, she confided in her best friend, Zayden, a software engineer with a healthy skepticism for authority. Zayden listened intently, his dark eyes serious. "They told you to fudge the numbers, didn't they?" he asked, pushing a stray noodle around his plate. Sienna nodded, her voice tight. "Not in so many words, but yes. It feels wrong, Zayden. Like a systemic cover-up, not a simple mistake. It always starts small," he mused. "A little lie here, a little adjustment there, until it's a whole new reality. What are you going to do?" Sienna looked at her half-eaten meal, suddenly losing her appetite. "I don't know, but I can't just ignore it." The anomaly gnawed at Sienna. She couldn't let it go. During her lunch breaks, after work, and even late at night, she began to dig. She cross-referenced data points she probably shouldn't have access to: public works contracts for school renovations, regional development reports, even archived inspection reports for the very schools supposedly benefiting from the Special Innovation Fund. The small discrepancy blossomed into a grotesque pattern. It wasn't just a clerical error. It was a carefully orchestrated deception. Certain high-ranking officials' names began to surface repeatedly, linked to projects in specific regions. These projects consistently showed inflated costs and underdelivery, yet the official NPAB data, the data she was meant to adjust, painted a picture of shining success and fiscal efficiency. She uncovered sophisticated data obfuscation techniques, creating shell projects that only existed on paper, miscategorizing funds, and using complex formulas to hide the siphoning in plain sight. It was brilliant in its wickedness, a statistical sleight of hand designed to fool anyone who wasn't looking for the truth. With Sienna's level of meticulousness, a growing paranoia began to settle in. She noticed subtle changes at work: stricter network security protocols, her access to certain archived files mysteriously restricted, and some colleagues, particularly those higher up, giving her strange, knowing glances. Sienna started saving her raw findings, her meticulously documented proof, off-site. Zayden, ever the tech wizard, helped her secure external hard drives and set up encrypted communication channels. "This is getting serious, Sienna," Zayden warned, his brow furrowed as he handed her a new, anonymized USB drive. "If they find out you're digging, they won't be happy. People lose their jobs over less. People lose their futures over more," Sienna countered, holding up a printout detailing a school in a deprived district still using textbooks from the 1990s, despite receiving millions for digital upgrades. "This isn't just about numbers anymore, Zayden. This is about lives." The thread continued to unravel, leading Sienna deeper into the labyrinth of corruption. One late night, buried in layers of financial reports and internal memos, she found it, a coded email, disguised as a routine budget update, detailing how specific data points related to the Special Innovation Fund should be massaged for the final public report. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an instruction, explicitly outlining the intent to deceive. The email originated from the office of a high-ranking official within the Ministry of Education, with CCs to Mr. Harrison and several other NPAB executives. The magnitude of the corruption hit her like a physical blow. Millions, possibly billions, of public funds intended for the very children who needed it most were being systematically diverted. It wasn't just inefficiency, it was grand-scale fraud, leaving schools in impoverished regions virtually starved of resources. Sienna sat back, her heart pounding. The truth, raw and undeniable, lay before her. She couldn't just fix the numbers. She had to expose the entire corrupt system. The thought filled her with a terrifying mix of fear and righteous anger. Her career, her reputation, her safety, all could be on the line. But the faces of those children, the dilapidated classrooms, the broken promises, they spurred her on. Zayden, seeing her distress, put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You have enough, don't you?" he asked softly. Sienna nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "More than enough. But what do I do with it? How do I fight something this big?" They discussed their options. Going through internal channels was clearly futile and dangerous. The very people involved were the ones she would be reporting to. Sienna needed an outside voice, someone powerful enough to cut through the institutional denial. After weeks of careful deliberation, Sienna and Zayden settled on Catherine Vance. Catherine wasn't just a journalist. She was a legend, known for her tenacious investigative reporting and an unbending commitment to truth. She had single-handedly brought down corrupt politicians and exposed corporate malfeasance more than once. Her name was synonymous with integrity. The first meeting was arranged discreetly in an anonymous coffee shop on the city's outskirts. Sienna arrived, a heavy backpack clutched in her hands, her heart drumming a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Catherine, with her sharp, intelligent eyes and a calm demeanor that belied her reputation, was already there. Sienna, her voice trembling slightly at first, began to explain. She laid out her findings, starting with the initial anomaly, detailing the data obfuscation techniques, and culminating with the damning email. She showed Catherine her meticulously documented proof, spreadsheets, cross-referenced reports, and the raw, unmanipulated data that screamed of deceit. Catherine listened, her expression unreadable. She asked pointed questions, probing Sienna's methodology, challenging her assumptions, and scrutinizing every piece of evidence. Sienna answered each with precision, her passion for the truth shining through her fear. Finally, Sienna presented the coded email. Catherine's eyes narrowed as she read it, her lips forming a thin line. "This is explosive, Sienna," Catherine said, her voice low. "Potentially career-ending for a lot of powerful people, and incredibly dangerous for you." She leaned forward. "Are you certain? Do you understand what you're risking? They will try to discredit you, destroy your reputation, maybe worse. Sienna looked Catherine straight in the eye, her fear replaced by a steely resolve. I can't unsee this, Catherine. I can't pretend it never happened. If I don't do this, who will? What kind of statistician would I be if I let the numbers lie, knowing the harm they cause? Catherine studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, Sienna Brooks, you have the truth. Let's make sure it gets heard. But we do this my way. Thorough investigation, secure communication, and a plan for maximum impact. Over the next several weeks, Sienna took a preemptive leave of absence from NPAB, feigning stress and burnout. This not only gave her more time to work with Catherine, but also created a crucial distance, protecting her from immediate internal detection or retaliation. Catherine, leveraging Sienna's detailed guidance, meticulously verified every data point. She utilized her extensive network, covertly interviewing anonymous sources, disgruntled regional educators who had long suspected fraud, low-level contractors forced to cut corners despite inflated invoices, and even a few sympathetic mid-level bureaucrats who had seen the warning signs but were too afraid to speak. Each interview, each piece of corroborating evidence, solidified Sienna's findings. Zayden, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to ensure Sienna's digital footprints were scrubbed clean and provided an additional layer of technical security. The story grew. It wasn't just about diverted funds. It was about children denied proper education, about communities held back, about the fundamental erosion of trust in public institutions. Catherine crafted a powerful multi-part expose, meticulously outlining the fraudulent scheme, complete with graphs and charts derived from Sienna's data, quotes from anonymous sources, and a chilling timeline of deception. The newspaper, after intense internal debate and legal scrutiny, decided to run it as their lead story. It was a risk, but the evidence was irrefutable. The day of publication dawned crisp and clear. Sienna, Zayden, and Catherine gathered in Catherine's small, cluttered office, eyes glued to the news channels and social media. As the first headlines flashed across screens and digital articles began to spread like wildfire, a suffocating mix of fear and exhilaration washed over Sienna. "It's out," Zayden whispered, his hand finding hers. "The truth is out." The government's initial response was swift and brutal. Within hours, the Ministry of Education issued a scathing press release, dismissing the articles as sensationalist journalism based on misunderstood and manipulated data. NPAB followed suit, labeling Sienna Brooks a disgruntled employee with personal grievances who had misrepresented complex statistical analyses. They threatened legal action, accusing her of data theft and corporate espionage. Sienna's professional reputation, which she had worked so hard to build, was publicly slandered. The online world erupted. While some voices championed her courage, a torrent of vitriol poured in, fueled by orchestrated smear campaigns. She received veiled threats, anonymous emails questioning her integrity, and relentless attacks on her character. The fear was real, a cold, persistent dread. Catherine and her newspaper stood firm. Each day, they released another meticulously researched article, presenting more evidence, more anonymous testimonies, more of Sienna's incontrovertible data, effectively countering the government's denials. Zayden became Sienna's rock, shielding her from the worst of the online attacks, managing her secure communications, and providing unwavering emotional support. Slowly, inexorably, public opinion began to shift. Parents, teachers, and students in the neglected regions, emboldened by the newspaper's investigation, began speaking out. Their personal experiences of underfunded schools, crumbling infrastructures, and lack of basic resources echoed and validated Catherine's reports. The anomalies were no longer just numbers. They were lived realities. Social media filled with images of dilapidated classrooms and handwritten signs demanding action. Politicians, initially defensive and dismissive, found themselves under immense pressure from their constituents. Protests erupted in front of government buildings. Finally, reluctantly, an independent inquiry was called. The inquiry began with trepidation from the establishment, but with fierce determination from Catherine and Sienna. Before a panel of respected jurists and independent data experts, Sienna presented her findings. She spoke clearly, methodically, explaining her statistical methods, detailing the evidence, and outlining the devastating impact of the fraud. Her voice, though still tinged with a memory of fear, resonated with unshakable conviction. Catherine provided additional testimony, bringing in her network of sources and expert opinions. The evidence was overwhelming. One by one, key officials, including Mr. Harrison and several higher-ups in the Ministry of Education, were implicated. Investigations widened, leading to arrests and, eventually, criminal charges. The Special Innovation Fund was frozen, its entire history placed under forensic audit. The ripple effect was monumental. Within months, new national legislation was drafted, implementing stricter oversight on public fund allocation, mandatory independent audits for all major government projects, and, crucially, robust whistleblower protection laws. The government committed to reinvesting the recovered funds, estimated to be in the hundreds of millions, directly into education, particularly in the most affected districts. Sienna, though profoundly exhausted by the ordeal, felt a deep, abiding sense of accomplishment. She had lost her job at NPAB, but she had gained something far more valuable: her integrity, her voice, and the knowledge that she had stood up for what was right against unimaginable odds. Months later, Sienna found herself not in a sterile NPAB office, but teaching a class on data transparency at a nonprofit dedicated to government accountability. Her face, once tense with fear, now held a quiet strength. Zayden worked with her part-time, developing open-source tools for public data analysis, while Catherine, a steadfast friend, continued to break stories, always citing Sienna as a source of inspiration. One afternoon, Sienna received an email. It was from a small, rural school, one of the many that had been decimated by the corruption she exposed. The email contained a photo. A group of smiling children gathered in a newly renovated classroom, proudly holding up shiny new textbooks. A new computer lab hummed in the background. Sienna smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. The numbers had told a story of injustice, but her courage had helped rewrite the ending. She had proved that even one person, armed with truth and tenacity, could change an entire nation, and that, she knew, was a story worth telling. That will be all for today. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. Goodbye.